Welcome to the Bird Nest Podcast. Your host, Alberto Contreras. Today we have episode 11, interviewing E&M Construction. Today with a friend of mine from high school / college, Gio. Please introduce yourself today.
Yes, sir. My name's Giovanni Mitsnawat, currently working for E&M Construction. Me and Bird have been friends for a while now. We've known each other through mutual friends throughout high school, and more so whenever we went to college.
The relationship grew, right?
Yeah, for sure. That it was a big jump of being, knowing somebody and actually having to study with them and seeing them every single day.
Sort of like growing together. You start. It's like developing that business relationship, but aside from just like the business and stuff, you grow up like a friendship, because it's those little things you have to do, helping each other with homework, helping each other remember sometimes sign up and help. It's a cool experience. I liked college really most of all, because it was cool, because those are the type of friendships you have to like nurture, right, like water, because the more that we were able to help each other out, it was easier for all of us. Like
for sure, making those relationships, like you said, pretty much not knowing that we're slowly making our connections and not knowing what our future held at that time and which route we were going to go. We kind of had an idea, but never knew exactly what was
where it was going to take us, right?
For
Which
sure.
I guess brings us to our first occupation. It's in the name, but can you break it down for us? What it is that you do for an occupation?
Yes, so currently at E&M Construction, I'm pretty much a business partner at this point, more like a foreman or a direct supervisor, if you call it at that. I guess that the title would be probably like a foreman or something like that. If you're not familiar with construction, that's a pretty high on. I got my brother and my dad above me, but besides that,
no one else. So it's pretty. So it's a family business then.
Yes, it's a family business as of now. And
so when did you guys start this company?
Yeah, so my father started it back then. He's working through the trades. He's done everything you can imagine, but he pretty much started that business probably, I could say, 20 plus years ago. Wow. As a lone son. Probably in the last 10 years, my brother has taken over. And then, here in the recent last year, it's when I've pretty much hopped on the train and started doing it.
So since your brother joined in, have you been doing sort of the same scope of work, or has it gotten more into like everything?
Yeah, so we'll go into more detail about, my background and what I studied and what got me to there. But it's gotten us to pursue a lot bigger work, having somebody with the actual knowledge to, to make sure the work is being performed correctly and stuff like that. So yeah, it's gradually getting bigger and bigger. Right. That's what what we
goal,
want, right?
I think that's always been the goal, and I think that's a good goal for anybody, but especially for you guys too, where it's nice that maybe your dad planted a seed and it's been growing, but now he has his sons that can come in and like help, pour more water into it. You know what I'm saying? So
it's cool. For sure.
Nothing like having a family business, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's what a lot of people tell me. People that I've worked with, different people I've worked with. Pursue it and work hard for it. I know my dad worked his ass off for it, so there's only one way, and it's to succeed. For sure. Especially. And
then, I guess I know the answer, but let the audience know is what skills or certification did you have to acquire in order to sort of get to this spot, if any, right? Which
so I think the biggest skill you need to get into general construction in general is to listen and learn. That's the biggest thing you can do, because nobody wakes up, says I'm ready to go to construction, and without listening and learning, you're not born to do something, right? You learn how to do it. You get the skill and do things repetitively where you can become good at them, right? So it doesn't matter what you're doing, framing, concrete, drywall.
I hear a lot of people say that in this field, it's really, you learn day by day, like you learn on the job. A lot of people that go to college, they do all this studying and learning, books.
Yeah.
And then in our degree, that's something that, I guess we knew because we were already doing construction early on,
sure.
but we knew that it was, the books and all this studying is nothing compared to like applying it to real life, right? Where sometimes maybe the real life more than the books, and the books you feel like are useless, but then you come to find out that the studying is good because you need to know contracts, how to do bonds, and set up everything, right? Like a structure of the company. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like I said, you gotta learn the skill, learn to listen more than that, and be hungry.
Right.
Be willing to learn long hours. I mean, there's a lot of people that go into this construction business and figure out it's not for them. Right. And I thought I was one of them until I really thought about it. It's like right. Maybe if I put some focus into it, I can do something from it. Because like you said, you growing up in the construction, being around construction, you start to learn materials and what they're for, right. How it's applied and stuff like that. And of course, there's an advantage if you go to and study it, right? I mean, it's an advantage to know how things work structurally, right. Stuff like that. That's half the battle, right. Sometimes.
It's like knowing more of the hands-on experience, because a lot of people, I guess when we were studying, remember how there was a lot of people that were in the program and they didn't know anything about the outside world,
Yeah.
And it almost looked like we was at an advantage, because whenever they would talk about it, they're like, yeah, these guys, they have this, they have, they've done the frame, and they're a little bit more familiar. Yeah. So it almost felt like you sort of, we had a edge or like an advantage to a lot of them. Mm-hmm. But I guess it was just by nature, right? Or by trade, like our parents, I guess. Yeah. It is an advantage to some point, but people don't understand that, like, at least for me growing up, when I was in the field, like, I quickly found out that shit wasn't fun, like being out in the fucking hot ass sun, these terrible fucking colds where like the materials are cutting you almost because it's that cold. Yeah. And so they think, it must be easier and this and that. I was like, they don't understand the type of shit that we went through, growing up. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, sometimes it's a slave, but it's fun times, man. Yeah. I can't remember the time I had a bad time, doing all that, being and still doing it. Sometimes I still have to do physical work, hands-on, even though I'm trying to get away from it. But, it's part of the job, like I said.
And it's good to know that you can be hands-on, because a lot of people think that, or at least to me, I hope I never forget it, but, sometimes the workers will be like, oh, it must be nice being on that, like in the truck, and they think you're not a worker no more, right? Or they don't know they used to work, and then you get off and you show them, like, what to do, or like that you do know, and then they're like, oh shit, my bad, man, I know,
Yeah.
And so it's almost like a respect thing also sometimes on the job site, right?
Yeah, for
where
sure.
You got to show respect, I guess, to the corporate people, but then at the same time you sort of have to win respect with the workers sometimes, because their excuses, oh, you think it's easy, like, you ain't never done it, and shit like that. I'm like, no, like, let me tell you how, like, I grew up, my father was a framer by trade, so man, every summer we'd go help him out. When I graduated high school, I helped him out for a whole year also. And then after I quit where I used to work with him, I did my own side job. So, I could say like physical labor, like, I can cut, I can nail, you use power tools and stuff like that. So it's not that hard. You just got to use your brain a little bit and be careful so you don't hurt yourself. But, so, how long did it take you to finish up school, right? And get your first job, which is, I would assume it was in E&M construction, right? Like,
yeah, correct. So, I guess leading up to graduation, after our 4-year degree, it was pretty much marketing yourself, right? Putting yourself out there. So that's kind of what they teach you at kind of the end of college is you got to start getting your resume ready, start getting everything ready to go to the job fairs and do this and that,
do workshops. They would try to sort of make us do internships, right? Get that like that early.
Yeah, and I mean, it was really hard at the time, like you're saying, internships, but at the time, man, money was a problem. So, the only thing I knew how to do was grind, right? Work. And I was working with my dad. We were super busy at the time. I mean, when I didn't go to school, I went to work, right? In that field, construction field. And so I pretty much had to make some time, get my resume ready, and start going to the job fairs. MTSU did a good job of having, different people there, different companies to come interview, and you give them your resume, have a little conversation with the people. But yeah, I mean, luckily I gave my resume out, and I landed a internship / like part-time with a company called E3 Construction. Okay. So pretty much what they were was like a sub to a sub of a commercial
contractor.
Yeah. So I worked along with them over the summer, and
so I'm always gonna ask you timeline, right? Because I like the audience to know, first and foremost, going back a little bit, like, how old are you right now?
Yeah.
Could you answer that?
Yes, sir. I am 26.
26.
Yep.
Okay.
26 today.
And so when we go back to the question where it's so the summer, do you know the summer of what year? Because it's like right now I like for them to go through sort of a timeline of your story so they know, you were this old, and I guess how much were you getting paid then and how you transition and where you're at today, because I think it's really amazing how I can see, and through myself and you guys, how we've made huge leaps of like wage gaps versus that's not common. They teach you where this corporate bullshit world where it's like work your ass off and you get $1 raise, or I've heard some people get 10 cents raise, 15 cents. And I'm like, what the fuck? So you got to work your whole life to get to like that $10 raise type shit. So that's why so that summer, what year was that?
Yeah, so I guess if you want to go way back, we can go way back. So let's say, all right, so when I graduated high school, off to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? So I was still working construction, but to pay off college, to pay off my bills, I mean, gas, we didn't spend much in college, but, it gets costly. I was not working for anything, literally. I was working for my gas. I was working for my school, and pretty much had $20 in my pocket, in my wallet.
And the reason you say that is because everything you made was to pay off school and
yes,
gas
I mean,
and stuff like that.
Not just that. I mean, we all worked at that point to pay bills, get the house running. We all, right? Like we were having trouble paying our house off. We were having trouble paying our car note off, So there wasn't extra money to go do it or pay me. So at that time, it was difficult times. But from there, got 2-3 years into college. I applied for my first internship. Like I said, I landed it in, I think, summer of 2018. Okay. So summer of 2018. And then, like I said, it was a subcontractor to a sub. We did commercial work. And that's kind of where I got my background really into learning the details of, I guess, or my welcoming to commercial construction. So for you guys that don't know, I studied commercial construction management at MTSU for 4 years. And I always done residential work for a long time. I knew about it, but I never really got into detail of exactly what was going on. I didn't pay attention to those details. I wasn't really looking at things. I was just working at that point, But that opened me up to, I mean, just knowing how big of an impact, like, it's pretty cool what we did. We were building metal decks on top of the 5th and Broadway project. Like, we were actually doing the building. Doing slab on metal decks, doing this, and that's kind of what got me in that that role, in the door.
So you said summer 2018. So what are you at the time? 22 years old?
Yeah, I think I was 20, 21-ish.
21-ish?
Yeah, I was 21-ish.
And so you get the internship, right? How long does the internship last, and what are you getting paid at that time?
Yeah, so whenever I went into the internship, it probably lasted about 6 months.
Okay.
Kind of the duration of the, just going back to school, and it went past some weeks past it, but I was getting paid at $25 per hour when, paid internship. That's not bad,
because like to be in school and getting paid that.
For sure, and they would limit me to 40, but me myself, I was, I wanted to grind.
Right.
So I was like, you don't have to pay me. You don't have to pay me overtime. Like, I'm gonna do it for free. I want to learn. Like, this is interesting me. And they were like, well, we'll limit you to 50. Like, I got 10 hours paid overtime, but I just kept seeking. Hey, can I do this? Can I do that? Right.
I guess going the extra mile, which a lot of people don't do anymore.
Yeah.
I always tell people that anybody who goes up the ranks or makes it in life, does extra. Does extra, doesn't do the bare minimum, because the bare minimum, people are always like, why are you working extra? Why are you killing yourself type shit? And they don't realize that, employers or that says a lot about you, even like mentality wise, that you start getting ahead of everybody. And then when you look back, they're like, oh, how'd he get up there, right? Like, they don't see, the extra hours you're putting in, the free sessions, the chats that you go, the social networking with all these bosses, and people actually writing shit down and learning it.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people, life passes right by them. And then, I don't know, it's usually like some point in their life where they look back and they're like, what the fuck, like, I'm not doing anything with my shit, with myself. Like, I'm just messing up. I don't see myself progressing, and you literally know it's like they sort of have themselves to blame.
Yeah, for sure. And most of it was I was just hungry, man.
Right.
I was hungry to learn and eager to learn. And I guess the company I worked for it was just a sub, but the actual contractor, which was Charter Construction, they do pretty much everything concrete for all the big GCs in the area in Nashville. So I got along with them, the superintendents, and an advantage we have is being bilingual. It goes a long way when you can use your head and you're bilingual and you know what you're talking about. It's dangerous,
especially in this field, man. When there's a lot of Hispanic workers, and there's not a lot of Hispanic people doing the shit that we're doing. And the reason that's a fact is me growing up, and you probably as well, every builder that I've ever met that's to this day is white.
Yeah, for
white,
sure.
African American, but there's a few Middle Easterns, but very rare I find like a Hispanic builder. Like right now, the ones that are coming out are the younger gen.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the finally when I'm seeing like this
man,
wave of new contractors coming in.
You got to use everything you can to your advantage, man. And like I said, I was hungry and willing to learn, and they were willing to teach me. So we got into the depths of it, of how foundations are built, or continuous foundations, mono slabs. I mean, we were doing it all, and opportunities started seeding out. One of the superintendents was going on vacation to Mexico for a month. I was part of his crew. He was telling me exactly what I had to do, and I was getting the hang of it. So when he left, he said, you know what? You and my foreman are the ones in charge of this group.
Wow.
Right? It's a lot of responsibility, but I was willing to take it, right? I was eager to learn, and I started getting good at it. Once you do things repetitively, you start getting it, right? And being able to get that knowledge and being out there, I mean, that's the number one thing you got to do, especially like you said, there's not a lot of Hispanic people in these big commercial buildings, or there is working, just to be a worker, but that's not the goal. The goal is to be on top, right? Especially on that. I mean, just on that take, but I went off on a little aside, but good, but yeah, that's what kind of got me into my welcoming into the commercial construction business. And
so taking you through the timeline of your career, right, to present. So you go there for 6 months, so that takes us into 20, so that's 4 years ago, 2018. So you're 2019.
Yeah, 2019.
That internship ends, and then so what? You're a senior now.
Yeah. So I think we're graduating at that point, because we graduating. Well, okay. I'm graduating in 2019.
Yeah, I graduated 2019.
December 2019. So
I graduated May. So you guys graduated 6 months.
Yeah, December.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So December 2019. And that's, like I said, everything gets built up. You go to these job fairs, and one stood out to me. I mean, their name was Hensel Phelps, and I gave them my resume like I did other people. I wasn't thinking much of it, right? I updated my resume saying I got an internship and what I used to do, and you have to have people that will back you up as well in it, right? Your supervisors, your stuff like that. And so that's kind of how it went. I think they do like the job fair like 2 to 3 months before you graduate.
Yeah.
So it gives you a little bit of time. So before I knew it, probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks before graduating, I got different emails from 4 different contractors, Turner Construction, I think W.E. O'Neill and Hensel Phelps, and then there was another small little general contractor. And so that's kind of where things flip, right?
So you have 4 deals on the table. So which deal is it that you go with?
Yeah, so I guess we were in communication through email, and they pretty much just set up like a interview like we're doing right now, a one-on-one, and say, hey, I'm a recruiter. I'm interested, to get to know you and, for a potential position for the company. So you kind of go from there, pick a day and go out. So I had to make a decision quick because they don't give you like,
because there are usually people waiting. So it's like they want to know whether yes or no. Yeah. And then because they know that, especially when you're a good worker, you have like 4 opportunities, they see something in you that they all sort of do, right? And so it's quick. They also realize that you can't say yes to everybody, so they're trying to get somebody to where yes or no. And if you think about it twice, I know that they're like, you're just not committed. So it's cool.
So I think they gave me like 10 days, and just so people know, like a little timeline, like you don't get these 4 emails back to back to back. You get them in different waves, right? Yeah. So the first one was the small contractor, and I got back to everybody and said, I want to set up an interview and I want to do this and that and it in the next week. So I went out to did the 4 different interviews. I interviewed, and one cut off to me, and it was Hensel Phelps because I don't know. When I went to the other 3, it was me and a representative of the company. It was more like an HR, like an HR lady who was there and kind of gave me the inside of them, a quick rundown of how their company operates, and kind of like, the same spiel you kind of get when you go into a new job, right?
Where you feel like it's automated.
This is, and it was kind of automated, and I was, like you said, automated. And I went into the last interview, which was with Hensel Phelps Construction, and it was a guy that worked boots, worked pants, straight out the job. And he said, hey, can you meet me at a bar? And I was like, yeah, man, I'll go. And I wasn't expecting that. It was more of a like one-on-one with a person, and he just told me, hey, straight up, if you want to make some money and you want to work hard and you're willing to work hard, I'll accept you right now and I'll give you this offer. And I mean, it was just a one-on-one conversation. He was like, this are our benefits, our PTO. You got to be a little bit competitive in that stuff. So he kind of gave me a little rundown, a little gist of it. And he said, well, if you're interested, I'll get back to you and fly you to Florida. So they're based off of Southeast. So they're based off Orlando, Florida. And I was like, you know what? Let me take that opportunity. And I mean, I saw it was different. So I took it, right? And I mean, they booked everything, paid for my meals, paid for my hotel, paid for everything. So, coming out of college, you don't expect that. That's what you're getting, right? Because
gets to move to a whole other state. That's pretty dope.
Yeah, not move, but the interview was over there, right? So, and then they kind of give you the rundown over there. Then it's more formal. You got to dress up. Right. You got to do all the spiel. And, I mean, it was so different. It was different. I wasn't expecting that. And then I guess you do the interview, you meet the higher up VPs, and it's the typical stuff. And you come back, and then within the next 2 days, you get your offer letter. Mm-hmm. So I received the offer letter, and so not from just them, but from everybody. Right. And so that's when the bigger decision is going to be made, right?
Right.
Like, what do I want to take? So I got offers from everybody. And then you start thinking, right, like this company is based off of here. Mm-hmm. This company is based off of here. And it was down to either being local or moving down to Orlando, Florida. So I think it was with Bell Construction. They had offered, I think, around $65,000 starting out. And to me, I mean, it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
You're getting paid 25 on 40s. It's right. It's some change, but it's not that. And life comes at you quick. So Hensel Phelps threw out 70, and they were like, well, we're probably gonna relocate you. So that also went in to perspective, and I had to think about it. I'm like, do I really want to move for $3,000? Like, is it gonna make sense? So that's kind of where I had to make the decision of, calling the other company and saying, hey, I got an offer on the table that's similar to yours. Like, if I have to move, I need a bigger offer. And they were like, well, we'll see what we can do, da-da-da. And so, I mean, within that same day, they called me back and said, hey, we just landed a job in Nashville if you want to. Oh. Yeah, so they were like, we're starting the airport down in Nashville. We're currently finishing Concourse D and doing the new B&A renovation. And so, I mean, it was an easy decision after that, right?
So you chose?
Yeah, I chose Hensel Phelps over Bell Construction. And, yeah, it was...
It was a nice like little trip. Like.
Yeah, man, and what I liked is like what they had told me is like, hey man, you can take as much time as you need, but like let us know when your start date is. I mean, at that time I was, I needed bread, so I was like as soon as possible.
You tell them like, hey,
for sure. I was like, man, as soon as possible. And they were like, you sure this is gonna be your last big vacation that you can take ever? And I was like, man, I just need to go to work. Right. And yeah, that's how it started. And I hired on with them, I think December 12th, right? Like a week or two before graduating college. Cool. So I was actually on the job.
But even before you graduated, that's dope.
Yeah.
So you have that job, right? And how long did you stay there? And then did your salary progress at all throughout those years?
Yeah, so what was the first question? I'm sorry.
So, how long did you stay with the company that you went with, and also did your salary change throughout the years, or did it stay the same?
Yeah, so I worked for them for 3.5 years. Wow. So
that takes us up to like basically to like this day, right? Like, I'm saying like this year, right?
Yeah, the end of this year.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean the start of this year, but. Cool. Yeah, that was it was good. So I guess you start off pretty much 70 range. I think it's gone higher up since now for sure, but it was at 70, and what they do is based on merit base ish. So just depending on how your supervisor sees you, how you're at the end of the year you have a review with your direct supervisor, and it's kind of like a just based decision of who's doing better, who's actually getting shit done and stuff like that. So it's it's pretty much based off of that. But my first year I was there, I mean, I think, which keep in mind, what was it, 2019? It was COVID year.
Right.
My raise was like $700 off my salary. Wow. Yeah, which I was grateful at the time. I mean, people were losing jobs. Right. People didn't have jobs.
Right.
So it wasn't much from there. That was my first year. And then second year, I mean, it was a drastic increase, probably like $4,000 from my average salary. And then on top of that, we got like a $4,000 bonus. So a lot of things you got to take in consideration is not only are you getting that salary, but you also have benefits. Right. Yeah.
So second year you go to making how much?
Second year I go from making like 70,700 to like 74,700 ish. Wow. So
what do you think what is that equating out to?
Like, yeah, and
like I guess like weekly base,
weekly base, you probably get paid, let's say 1,800 before taxes. Right. But depending if you're single or you're married or your status, right? And then they'll take it away. But
so second year go to 74,000, so that takes us into 2021, right? Because 2019 to 2020 is your first year. 2020, 21, and then 2021, 2022, did you get another raise?
Yeah, so 2021 into 2022, that's when I moved up in positions. So they take that in consideration as well. And I think it was $5,000
more.
Yeah, $5,000.
So now you're hitting that $80,000
about,
and that's before bonuses, benefits.
Yeah, before all that,
vacation and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Wow. And so then now that brings us to this year, right? Which is, I guess the question is, that I'd also like to know is, why is it that you left, and was it a pay thing, or did you just feel like it was your time to?
Yeah. So I guess the audience doesn't know how. Commercial construction companies, general contractors work, but you're based off of a salary for a reason. Right. They don't pay you hourly for a reason, right? Because if you're in charge of the entire construction project, it's your duty to fulfill that. Like, you are in charge of this building. So it's long hours, 60 plus for sure. For the audience to know, it's hard work. It's sometimes hands-on and sometimes, just in the office trying to get something done, right? But when you have such a big project, I think it was $500 million project that we were doing. People aren't sleeping, right? Like, our higher ups were stressed to a level where you got to make dates. You got to hit those deadlines and stuff. Yeah, for sure. Because we're not talking about a small or like it's an active airport, right? You got to get stuff done. If you don't meet those dates, you're paying them for it, right? So that's kind of what you start to learn schedules, you start to learn processes, you start to learn different stuff that starting in, I was a field engineer. I didn't know much, right? But you start getting the lingo, you start getting the day-to-day, right? And yeah, man, it's well paid, but it's also very stressful.
So the audience sees that $80K, right? But what they don't know is that all those extra hours, because this is the negative thing about working on salary sometimes. They overwork you sometimes, because if you're behind, and they use that excuse, right? There is all these loopholes where technically, since you're on salary, you're capped, right? So it's like if you're working those extra hours, you're not getting sometimes extra cash. Maybe you are, it depends on every contract. Yeah. But I don't know, especially us being young sometimes, because I know when I did that shit early on with my first boss, is I didn't consult that. So sometimes I came to find out I screwed myself because that's a very important thing you should put. Like, okay, my salary is based off of how many hours, and you can negotiate that, right? So once, if you're able to do that early on, then they're like, okay, well, if you're really working overworking, or I also learned, I limit myself on, I guess residential is different because you have more smaller jobs, and in commercial is one big job. But I also tell myself, okay, I'm capped out with this many houses. So if I do, let's say 5 houses at a time, that's fine. If I do less, that's fine. But the moment that I'm doing house 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I was like, I need more cash. Yeah. Because we agreed to a certain amount, right? Like at a time type shit.
For sure. They'll give you as much as you can take, and that's something I didn't get on until later. Right. I was eager to learn and get stuff, and I was like, you know what? I'll take it. Right. And they'll keep giving it to you.
Next thing you know, like, you're fucking tired and shit.
For sure. And I guess at the time and at that age, you want to do other stuff, but I was busy working, man. Monday through Sunday, especially through the crunch time. I mean, we work Saturdays, Sundays when we're turning over different spaces. Like, you got to go in and work every day,
right?
Because if something doesn't get done, it's your fault.
And I bet you with those type of jobs in commercial, if you're behind schedule, you got to work that second shift, third shift, because I know a lot of those commercial jobs at the airports, they're running shifts 24 hours.
Yeah, so
they have different people coming in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a 24-hour job because the schedule, to meet the schedule, you have to work it. Like, there's no
even if you're ahead of time, it doesn't count because you may get behind time, and sometimes the airport or outside things put you behind time, and it's sort of like they'll try to make up an excuse that it's not their fault type shit. So I can see how that's like really draining.
Yeah, and like I said, it's an active airport, so most dangerous things have to go on at night. Most dangerous things, loud things. I mean, if you're not familiar with like working at an airport, it is like very strict. You can't leave stuff behind. You can't. You got to be badged. I mean, it's a whole process, right? And we kind of had to follow the rules. I mean, stuff that you don't even think about, like somebody could jump over this, or if this isn't barricaded right, like somebody could get through here and breach security, like different things that you don't going in, like you're naive or you're just ignorant.
I think it's just some things that especially if it's a whole new type of field, because for most places it's never that strict, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
it's normal things to work, and I guess normal because it's not like every other place you go to has the same fucking rules. I guess it's very particular, like extremely like pressured, and because of bad people, right? Like terrorists and shit, and people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
people are crazy nowadays.
Man, the things I've experienced, man. I've seen some crazy things, man. But like I said, that's kind of the rundown of that. I think your other question was like, what pushed me out? So like, when I got promoted twice in that company, they just keep giving you more. And I think I was put in a shit situation where, because of other people quitting and upper management's irresponsibilities, it kind of dawned upon me where I couldn't catch up, right?
Wow.
And that's a position I don't want to put myself in, right? And so I told them, the position I'm in, I don't feel like this is properly being given to me.
Right.
If you don't, I don't want this position anymore. And if you can't do anything, well, I'm out.
Right. And that's sort of why you guys ended off things.
Yeah. I mean, it ended off in good terms.
But do you think do you think that you started seeing like I'm not saying like the ship is sinking, but did you start seeing the ship rocking? And
for sure.
And then people jumping off ship.
Yeah.
And now the ship starts rocking more, and now there's less people, which it was all being focused on you to some extent.
Yeah, I think what really ticked me off was like, there was a lot of good people leaving. Like you said, you see a lot of people leaving the boat. And that's kind of what I was seeing. Like,
Do you question yourself, like, why are these people leaving,
Yeah, not just that. Like, I knew why they were leaving. But it just, when you work with people for a certain time, like, you start becoming close and you start doing this. And when different people start to leave, like, you start like, whoa, asking the question, like, whoa, what's going on? Like, what is this?
Right.
And there's other stuff that, goes on behind closed doors and stuff like that. But I mean, to the gist, I knew my time was coming to the end at that point. But yeah, another opportunity opened up.
Okay. So you leave and that company, and then did you go straight into your family?
Yeah, that same day I put in my 2 weeks, and after the 2 weeks, I just transitioned straight off that same day, grabbed my stuff.
And I guess because again, this is nice for the audience to know. So going into E&M construction, did your wage reverse, right? Did it go down, or were you able to keep it the same, or?
Yeah, so the terms we agreed with my parents or my brother and my dad was, we'll keep what you were based off of, and I don't have the benefits or stuff like that, but we would keep the wage the same on a weekly basis. And that equaled into hourly, and then now I get paid hourly for what I do. Right. So I think that's roughly like 31 right now. So it's not bad, right? Not bad. So,
but I bet you, I mean, it's way less stressing. It feels better that it's a family owned business, that all the work you do is sort of for the household, right? Not someone else.
And that's kind of what opened my eyes. Is I was working so hard for someone else. And I think my brother got to me, and he was like, you're working really hard, and I'm proud of you, but you're working for somebody else. Like, somebody else is the one who's getting the benefits of you working that hard.
Right.
And you're only getting paid for your salary, right? And so I guess the goal with him is to become bigger, right? Because right now my salary is my limit, right? But let's say 3 to 5 years in the future, that's not the limit. Now we share profits, right? And that's the plan. I mean, my plan is to be well off, right? But it's also to invest in myself and my family. Nothing like a family business to keep it rolling and to have a steady income, right? So, I mean, that's how I take it right now.
But you can see sort of like a road, right? Where you can see the other, like the end, right? Sort of clearer instead of commercial, right? Where commercial, I've always told people, man, like, it'll take you ages before you're in that spot where, you want to be, right? Because, those type of positions that get paid really well, man, they have to have like 10, 20 years of experience and shit. So I think it's something that you're going to progress at a much slower pace. And, I mean, I guess you're going to progress as quick as you can, because it's a family business, and, whether, you're still getting paid a good salary, but the family business is growing sooner or later, your dad's not going to work forever, right?
For sure. So, and that's the plan, for me and my brother to take it over, and him as oversight as long as he can.
Right.
But at least physically working, we're giving him a time frame of about a year to 2 years to get him out of the field and start just, doing things from the side.
Right.
But yeah, man, that's what we plan to do, and I'm taking that experience, and it's giving me so much at what we do right now.
Right.
I'm thankful for all the opportunity I got there. I mean, I learned a lot. Like you said, knowing how to read plans, to knowing about specs, knowing about drawings, knowing about the different drawings, right? What architectural, structurals, mechanical, what goes into a building, right? Like, a lot of people don't know that. You don't go and know that out of school. Like, you don't.
No.
You absolutely don't. And when they kind of put you under the fire and make you in charge and, put you out there to
you quickly
learn.
Find out how much you don't know. And right. Because sometimes I think we tell ourselves that, it can't be that bad, or it's not that hard. And then you start seeing all this shit that, like, they didn't teach us this shit in school, like, because it's more complex, right? Or it's like you were sort of taught like just a little bit of everything, but now you have like these super detailed plans, and they expect you to know like almost like you're them, and I'm like, dude, we just got out of college type shit.
But that's not the answer.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've always said, fake it till you make it, right? So
no, you're just for real. But like I said, be willing to learn and to ask, because that's the best thing you can do.
Right.
When you don't know something, you ask, right? Nobody knows everything going in. But if you ask certain people, if you ask the trades, if you ask your supervisor, if you ask your superintendent, they'll give you the answer, even though they'll make you work for it, sure. But
I think from it comes from they would rather know that you don't know what you're doing than for you to say yes.
Yeah, because
and then you mess up, and they're like, all you had to do was ask. It's like I don't want, because you fuck up, they fuck up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it makes everybody look bad. So sometimes I'll tell them like, hey, even to this day, I'm like, I'll be honest, man. I was like, I don't know what the fuck that is. So I was like,
yeah, man. I was like, no, for sure. Like you said,
it starts becoming less, you know, but you still got to be honest sometimes, you know. Like,
so for sure. And like you said, coming out of college, they got to know, like, hey, I don't know everything, right?
Right.
But like you said, don't start sinking. If you start sinking, then you both sink, and that's not good. I've seen people not ask for help, not want help, and it's like
those are the type of people that almost come in and come out. Like
that. I mean, as quick as they come in, they go out because they just don't ask. They don't, ask the right questions.
And in this type of field, man, you fuck up, it costs thousands.
Oh man, yeah, I've seen some bad. Like, luckily, I've had my issues.
Well, nobody's perfect,
but it's not like ripping out the slab, freaking, we didn't put this in there. We put this in wrong. Like, we got to take this whole thing out. Like,
it's a huge loss money wise, but it can also be a safety concern, man. Where imagine something that you overlooked, ends up being the cause because somebody gets hurt.
For sure, yeah, and like stuff that you don't even know, right? Like, I mean, I was up in the big beams up top, in I think there were like 80-foot columns, going up there, climbing. Like, stuff I didn't ever think I was ever going to do, to go check welds, make sure welds were right, make sure nothing broken with the inspector. Like, got my harness on. Like, different stuff that you never think you would ever do out of college. Like, I was doing, like, double checking this. Let's get this measurement. Let's do as-built. It's like, it's different small things like that you start looking into detail. And
I think that's where your experience starts coming from. It's all that extra stuff that you do.
Oh, yeah.
Which I guess coming into your family's business, I bet you brought a ton of experience that they didn't know either. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like sometimes I feel our parents or our family and shit, we have this tendency of doing shit old school.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're Hispanic. It's really like, write everything down. It's more laid back. So it's nice to have somebody that you learn all this cool shit from, like, you could almost say like the future, like people that it's all, commercial, it's all paperwork, it's all a process. So you come in and you sort of see this company that may be struggling, like something paperwork structure wise. You're like, oh man, this shit's easy. You know what I'm saying? Because you're coming from a super complex system.
Yeah, right? Bro. Like, I didn't know how in detail I had to get, but I mean, you're looking at, right? You just don't have your drawings. You also have your shop drawings, like different stuff like that a lot of people don't really pay attention into. Like, it's really unknown in the residential side of things, unless you're doing like a really big super then you'd start getting into those details.
Small commercial basically at that point.
Yeah, like a small little commercial job,
which is multifamily or something.
And it's a whole process. I mean, it's great to go in if that's what you're looking for, and like you want to be the company man. Like, there's a lot of money out there for that. Right. Like, if you want to be that company man, that is the way to go. Go into a general contractor, work up the ranks, and get to the place where you want to be, right? You can make over $200,000 a year plus bonuses, and then you start getting stock in the company, right? Like, that's a company man. Like, if that's what you want to do and you are set focus on that, like, that is the perfect route, right? To learn. You start knowing about contracts, like you said. You start knowing about estimates. You start knowing about RFIs, information, how to submit it, how to write them, different stuff like that. Change orders, big.
And I think in our degree, I think one of the most important things is knowing how to bid.
Yeah,
because you can outbid everybody and realize that you're doing the work for a fucking fraction of the cost.
For sure.
But you can also not have a lot of contracts, and you come to find out that it's more of a structure wise. Like, sometimes it could be something super small, but they're just not used to, doing those type of things. Like, being so detail oriented. Because, I mean, I have this shit all the time with some of my subcontractors. And residential, man, it's nothing like fucking commercial, right? I have some of these guys scribble shit on a paper and send me a picture, and I'm like, I'm not a dick, I could be a dick because I know there's companies that won't accept that shit. Like, they want a job name, they want a PO, they want a VPO number, all this shit, they want it numbered. And I'm like, bro, you gotta get your shit together. Like, do some type of Microsoft Word, right? Like, invoice. But do some Excel. They literally just send me a little, like, they'll send me a picture, and it's like on one of the Walmart sheets that has the white, the yellow, and the pink, and then they send me a picture of the pink. and it's like all faded and shit. And I'm like, I call them. I'm like, hey, bro, what the fuck is this, bro? I can't even read it. They're like, oh, it's first withdrawal and this and that. I was like, cool. And I tell them, like, you understand, bro? Like, I'm like, you do this for everybody? And they're like, yeah. I was like, bro, I've worked for some people that they will take your invoice and put in the trash. I was like, I need you to get your shit together.
For sure.
So yeah, it's a lot of old school shit, man, that still goes on today, which surprises me because, you know, you would think that construction is one of the most, because it's one of our leading economy things, man. Yeah. But it's surprisingly shocking to me how fucking old school we are.
Yeah.
Like you know, the people that are doing this shit that are millionaires, right? Like they're old people, man.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they're in their late 50s, you know, early 60s. Man, they're super old school. You know, everything's like hand drawn and shit. So it's this new gen that's having a sort of like turn into this phase, but I still see it lingering at least for another 20 years
for sure.
It's surprising just how not to date we are, you know. And, you know, some you know, I'm not saying everybody, right, but it's still very common. Like, you know, the reason I say that is like our code department, man. Like fucking Metro Codes, like Nashville. Like I'm like, I show up and dude, they want me to go to the fucking office and come with like physical drawing. And why? Because all the inspectors are older people, man. Like they're in their like late 50s and 60s, and I'm like, dude, like some of them don't want to do this whole new. And I had talked to them, they're like, I don't know how to use it. I was like, it's like, how the hell? Yeah, right. Like, how the hell are we supposed to like evolve? And I was like, this is like one of the most, if not the most expensive industry, you know, outside of like maybe online business and shit.
For sure.
But I think like from a physical aspect, but it amazes me, man. And then another question I'd like to ask you, right? So you're working right now with your company, and I guess the reason I ask these next few questions is just to give yourself sort of like a challenge yourself where you see yourself, you know, the next few years, which is income wise. So, you know, what would you want to be at in the next, you know, 1 to 3 years? And the reason I say that is sort of like a challenge to yourself. Let this video be some of a time capsule, right? That you can come back and reflect, right?
For sure. I guess the goal would be to stop performing work for others and start self-performing for ourselves. So what I mean by that is start building houses for ourselves. Currently, we do own 2 houses that we are building for ourselves. So I guess it would be 3 to 5 years, have 4 to 5 houses that we're building
at a time.
Yeah, for sure, for ourselves.
And just so the audience knows, like that, I mean, we're talking about big money, which I don't, you know, it'll be a whole other thing of how you guys split it between, you know, father, son, and brother, right? But usually on typical homes, right? I mean, you're profiting anywhere from, if you're doing them in Nashville, or really anywhere, right? You're profiting almost, I think 50% is too high, but I think it ranges from, you know, if you have a good deal where you got the land cheap, you can profit 40% to like 20%. But 20% is usually like, you know, we were taught that that's that rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Anything less than 20, technically you lost, right?
Yeah.
Apparently, but I don't think it is, because, you know, you take a $700,000 house that sells for $700,000, you know, you're building it for $350,000, $400,000 plus land cost, which is about $100,000. I mean, because I see this shit happen all the time with my boss and his investors and shit. Yeah. And every home I do for them, they profit $200,000, $150,000, which I understand it's not full profit because you got to pay real estate, you got to pay the lenders, right, the banks. But I still think it's a big fucking amount of change, especially when you, a lot of these, you know, in Nashville or here, you knock one, build two. Yeah. So your profit is double. You know? For sure. And then, you know, you're doing 2 at a time. And the reason you can't do more sometimes because of money, but you can run, you know, 2, 4, 6, you know, 10. I've run up to 12 sometimes for my boss at a time. Yeah. So you just imagine like those numbers that they're profiting times
what
that many
fucking
homes.
Right?
So you can make millions off this shit. Like,
for sure.
I mean, and home sale, man. Like, you know, here we have the blessing that nothing sits.
Yeah.
If it's sitting, it's because either you have a bad product or you're too high.
Yeah, for sure.
But nothing sits here.
And the thing that kind of differs us from other companies is we self-perform most of the most expensive work, right? The
fields, right? Which is what, concrete?
Right, yeah. Everything masonry.
Oh, wow.
So we can do everything masonry to tile, to brick, block. I mean, everything. Foundation. We have the machinery to demo.
The machine.
Right. We have the... Right. So that's more profit in our pocket, right?
So not only are they getting like the investor standpoint, or they will get the investor standpoint, right? But they also profit all the, segments that come from building a house, which is like let's say building a house is 30 steps, right? So you have like from staking it to footers, foundations, slabs, and then you have framing, and you have sidewalks. Well, if they're doing, if they're profiting the outside, which is after soft costs, which is construction costs, but then they also profit some of the inner costs, right? Which is sort of like self-billing yourself, right?
Yeah.
But you separate the two entities, I think, to some knowledge, right? You sort of have maybe an outside LLC or some type of way that you're going to sell the home. Right. So it's like they make profit, then they make more profit, which is, a lot of the investors are capped because they're not hands-on. So they only gain the exit profit. So, it's a really smart, and like not a lot of people are willing to do the work. Some people just get happy about earning the end profit. But they're seeing, why leave all this other, right? If you guys
right, we can, like you said, we're
and do some of it, a good amount of it, especially concrete being one of the most expensive things, which is your foundation and structures. So profit here, profit there. I mean, it's a whole different, it's a different view to look at it, because not a lot of people, are willing or look at this home from a structure like that.
Yeah, correct. And like I said, it's just mitigating costs to where our only cost is labor.
Right.
It's not there's no overhead profit. That's going to be the gain at the end when we sell the house. So luckily, my dad, my brother, and our crew, we have our designated people that know the different skills and are capable of doing those type of jobs, that we do for other contractors. But, why not do it for ourselves, right? Like you said, it's most of the cost that really goes in, right? Selling a house.
And then, from any good subcontractor, like technically your labor is, let's say a concrete, right, averages, like a slab averages around $12 to $14 a square foot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what a subcontractor is charging, right? So when you really break it down, like let's say a slab costs you $30,000, what would you say that you're really in it for?
Yeah.
What do you think you're in it for? What, like half, 15, 20?
Yeah.
20, like let's say 20.
Not even, like 12 probably.
12? Yeah. So that's $18,000 of profit that, like, on a per square foot price that, they don't charge themselves, which they're going to earn it at the end. So they get to keep their construction costs lower, which on a price per square foot allows them to be maybe not so stressed out like an average builder, because they're paying the $30,000 versus the 12, right? So that extra $18K allows them to do all these extra fields for free, basically, because they're profiting. Their profits, they don't cash them in early on, but they're going to grow that, like the piggy bank, right, as big as possible to the very end. So.
And I think one thing that my brother's done very well of is investing in the company. Mm-hmm. So we've invested in a lot of machinery, excavators, skid steers, different types of machines that help us perform different stuff, right? Like a mini skid, or I think they call it a dingo. Right. But, stuff like that help you grade between houses, help you,
And that stuff's so expensive because the per hour, the machine ranges hundreds up, right? Like 120, 150 per hour. And if you use a dingo for a full day, I mean, that's $1,000, $1,500. So it may be an investment early on where it's cost, but one, they get to do, they get to write it off. And then at the end, they get to keep the machinery. Not only that, they're using the machinery to help them, save on costs, because all that machinery he just said that they have it and they're acquiring. I mean, we're not talking about like a used car type shit. Like the most used machine is still going to range you $8,000, $10,000, where they can range up to $20,000, $30,000, $50,000. And we're talking about used, because new, they're like the 75 to 100 type range, right? Yeah. They can go up to 200, right? So it's machinery for construction is ridiculously expensive, but when you have it, you open this world of like infinite wealth, because you could use it, and if you're not using it, you could rent it. Yeah. And then you also get the depreciation, which anytime that you put money into your business, it's a write-off. So anytime that machine breaks and he has to fix it, maybe you have to use the money right now in a present, but you get to write that off as a loss or investment into your business at the end of the year, so you sort of get that money back.
Correct. Yeah. And like you said, man, like these machines, they're not cheap, right? But just so the audience can know, these machines will make you about 20 grand, let's say, in one site. If you perform all the different, footings right. and all the little stuff for excavating. Sometimes people want you to excavate for pipes, sometimes for drains, for stuff like that. There's a lot of multiple uses to use those machines.
And it's just like in the way in our budget standpoint, it's line item after line item after line item, like digging for your electrical conduit. It's charged per linear foot. So if you're 100 foot out, that's 100 linear foot, right? So it's charged like $7-8 a square foot because you need to dig the machine. But the pipe really only costs you about $2 a square foot. So just literally for digging the 100 foot trench, that's $5,000 profit owning the machine that you would have had to pay someone else to. And then they go rent the machine for the day for like $1,000, and they profit $4,000 off you for doing the work. When you can just do that shit yourself, and you have to do that for the electrical, you have to do that for the sewer, for the water, for the gas, and then you have to dig right your sidewalks, your storm drain, right? Like any storm water, like French drains, that's just expensive. French drains, storm water, which is a whole another hardscape that Ishmael, I had Ishmael on the podcast. Yeah. That's what he does. And that's why he earns really good fucking money, because hardscape is super expensive. Yeah. But again, it all comes down to, it's just the machinery is what opens this huge like world of like income, right?
Yeah,
and it's like the machine does the work for you.
Right.
You just have to be able to have the money, right, to get the machinery.
Money, and then you also got to be, skilled. You got to be able to do it, right? Not everybody knows how to use the excavator. Not everybody knows how to use a skid steer.
Not everybody knows how to take care of
for sure. That's huge.
Because you have to sometimes do it yourself. Because people, your workers sometimes they're like, fuck it, they don't take care of it, and they're running through a $20,000 machine and she's breaking down.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like we've had a couple of people just
like be reckless.
Yeah, they're reckless, or they just don't really, like you said, they don't really care because it's not their stuff.
It's not their stuff.
They're not paying for it.
And even though it makes their life super easy, because if you didn't have the machinery, and sometimes you can't rent it, right? Because they're booked. Back in the old day, or sometimes when you have to, man, they'd be out there with the shovel, doing everything. Like if it's a small, and I'm like, and they're like, oh, why ain't y'all rent the machine? I'm like, dude, because y'all don't take care of shit. Like,
yeah, for sure, man.
I'm not gonna keep doing shit like renting stuff where y'all can just, just burn my money. And I'm like, all right, cool. Then I want y'all to feel what it feels like.
And one thing I've heard a lot is like, oh, well, let's say something does get damaged in a machine. Oh, just take it off my paycheck.
Right.
They don't know how expensive
that
pieces are. Man. And I had one guy, he's like, oh, just don't worry, I'll pay for it. Mm-hmm. All right. I was like, okay. I went to the store. I went to Parman down on Lebanon Pike. Went over there, grabbed the piece, $8,000. Well, just for one piece.
And then you tell him that shit.
And then I gave him the receipt, and I said $8,000. The next day he quit.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, man, it's like the machinery is already expensive, and then the people that do the maintenance, and maybe you were able to fix it, but now you have to hire somebody to fix the machines, and they also charge you per hour. Man, I be seeing like we a lot of in our industry they use lifts a lot, right? And I be seeing the bills that the dude that fixes the lifts, it's all $900, $1,400, $1,500 for small shit, man. That's just like the checkups. Oh, but then let the hydraulic shit fuck up. That's $6,000-$7,000. The tire goes flat because they drove it over something that they shouldn't have. So now they got to fill the tires with like foam and shit, or change out the tires. Oh, if you let the shit run out of diesel, it won't start up.
Yeah, man, you got to
pump collects air. So now you got to pump the air out and you got to fix it. So just for not putting or checking that there's diesel in, it can cost you a few $1,000s because you don't you may or may not know how to do it, right? So you got to call a tech. Yeah. And so, man, again, it's just a lot of responsibility, that a lot of, the workers think that, it's all just sunshines and rainbows where it's just profit in your book. And I mean, I guess to some extent it is, but, you've also set yourself up, and y'all have set yourself up for years, right? Again, you don't get to this position, or you're getting to this positions that you guys want to be, because y'all woke up one day and decided, hey, fuck, let's do it. Like, that's some shit you got to grind for, and you're working yourself day by day, and you're starting to see your seeds, flourish. It. People think, oh, he has it easy and shit. They're like,
yeah, man.
A lot of people don't recognize, the work that really goes into it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about us, man, we started from the ground, man. I mean, we were living in an apartment with 15 people when we first moved to Nashville. Slowly, my dad got us up. He kept working his ass off, trying to get work like at Mapco to do this, do that. But something he did was he learned everything he could.
Right.
Got us up from the ground up. Got us through. Got us our first duplex renting, and then got us a house where we're currently living at. To keep working, he brought that upon his kids, me and my brother, and my brother helped the business grow so much. To the point, endless things, right? Like what I'm telling you, of learning how to use the equipment, how to do this, how to make money, doing different things that they weren't skilled of doing when they first started it. But if you keep doing that, you keep working towards that. I mean, right now we're going to our fourth property, as we just bought a house right next to ours, and just keep grinding, man. Like just keep doing what you're doing, and it'll things will start slowly building up, and more opportunity will come your way for sure.
It's amazing where you guys are at right now, and again, like it's really nice. Where I guess I appreciate it because I can sort of relate to where I came from nothing. Like there was a point when my aunt came over and we were helping their family stay with us. I remember we were like high school. It was like late middle school, early high school. They came over and it was like 10 of us, man, living in a 2-bedroom, like
yeah, man.
Nice. And I remember I told my brother, I was like, and my cousins, I was like, remember when we was all living in that rental we used to live at? I was like, dude, like, we sort of made it work, and it was 1 bathroom, right? So it was 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. And I was like, shit was rough, man. Like, I'm not, of course there's always somebody gonna have it worse than us, but, or than the next one. But, you sit back and you look at that, 15 people living in a house. And I think you get a greater appreciation as you start doing things better, that as you get these come ups or you get the money, you treasure it more. And when I mean treasure it, is not, you don't like stockpile it, but you appreciate like at least every dollar that comes in. And I think like we think about it twice before we spend recklessly, because you go back to those times when you had
for
nothing.
Sure, you get those little flashbacks that you're like, remember when we used to do this? Right. And at the time, it was serious, or you weren't meeting ends meet, but when you look at yourself now, you say, wow,
like we really did it, right? And it's
for sure.
Like look how much we've changed, and the color of our skin doesn't have anything to do with it, because I think if anything, the color of our skin is something that we should be proud of, because I guess to society or a lot of people, like, it's common that we don't make it, or we don't do what we're doing because it's not normal. Yeah. And it's like, oh no, like, why are you doing all that? Like, just be a worker, like,
yeah, for sure.
Why are you trying to be a boss? Like, you're not gonna make it. It's that's a white man's game type shit. Yeah. Especially in this degree, where it's
for sure. Yeah, I mean, you get that type of stuff, but I mean, just coming from personal experience, my dad didn't even speak English. Right. Both my parents are undocumented. I mean, wow, they've gone so far to where we can say we actually fucking made it. Like it's being down in the slums is tough, man. Right. It's really tough to get out, not just like for our parents, but for us as well. I think sometimes we can take different routes and go the wrong way, right? But we just decided to go the right way and do the right things and not follow the wrong people.
And hopefully we can put on, the next generation, any other family members, whether that be, uncles, aunts and shit. Because sometimes, it doesn't matter how old you are. But, if you're little granito de sal, right, advice can help them change their lives or their kids, which would be your cousins, right? Or not even your cousins, like, friends, peers.
Nephews.
You start seeing nephews and shit, right? And they're growing up, and it's like, they see their, and I'm not trying to talk shit, but they see their parents or somebody that they're not in a good situation. I'm like, dude, like, don't let that shit discourage you. Like,
yeah,
you can't choose what you were born with, but you can choose where you in.
For sure. So,
I've been meeting a lot of this younger gen right now that's like 17, 18 years old, that they're getting ready to finish up high school, and I've been telling them my story and, sort of what I'm making. And I'm like, dude, I don't know what it is that you want to do in life, But I was like, if you're gonna go to school, think about being a builder. I was like, why? Because your fucking father's construction. You've been in this. And I was like,
yeah,
the money's fucking crazy to some extent, to where how much money you can make. Right. Where you can earn double fucking salary in a year if you play your cards right. You can get a side job and make an extra 10K, 20K, like nothing. You know, it just depends. For sure. You know, opportunities set themselves up. And so once I talked to them, they're like, dude, like, thank you. Like, I was about to be a psychiatrist or like,
yeah,
man. This other dude was like, oh, I was gonna be an engineer. I was like, bro, do you know how many people are being engineers?
Yeah.
And I was like, you think that when you're out, they're gonna choose the Hispanic? And I was like, and then I tell them, I'm like, have you even looked at what they're earned? They're like, yeah, they earn like 50 to 70K. I was like, that's it?
Yeah, I was making that out of a 4-year degree with like, no engineering,
with nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like we're getting paid that as soon as we get out of fucking college. I'm like, dude, just don't throw your life away. You know what I'm saying? And I get it. It's not your fault. And it's not your parents' fault, but it is your parents' fault in the sense of you don't have somebody to show you these different routes.
For sure.
And your parents never have been in these positions to, all they can do is say, like, you know, like, I can't give you advice because
they've never been in that position.
Like me, you know, like don't be. And when they do that, is they get paid good, but they come home, man, and they're fucking tired.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they come home and all they want to do is just fucking rest and shit. Like, you know, I'd be seeing my dad sometimes come home and he's fucking exhausted, or sometimes he can't feel his hands because he's getting older, and you know, it's like a lot of physical work. And I mean, we did it ourselves too, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes you wake up, man, your fucking back's like hurted, and you gotta go right back to work. Like, you know what I'm saying? Man. When you work and you can't tell your back, hey, bro, like, you know, you tired, you know, you aching.
Nah, man, I have a little story. Together. So like the first time I went back, like that day, I guess that week I quit. Mm-hmm. So when I quit, I was in the office. I was office management for Hensel Phelps. And that week I went back into, like, you know, walking a lot, picking up material, dropping off material, picking up a machine, dropping it off, moving over here, moving over there. And it's like, you know, it's a different pace from being stuck at one job site to being in multiple parts of the city for the entire day till like 7 p.m. Oh, man. I was beat. Right. I just went home, showered, and went straight to sleep, and I bet bro. You woke up the next day I felt like a train. I got wrecked by a train, man. I was like, oh, I felt how bad this feels. But, you know, it was a great learning opportunity, what I did, and I'm so grateful for that back end, you know, that background I got to try to apply it now and start doing something for us, you know.
Right.
To bring this company up, like I said, we've gotten different contracts, different stuff like that we can now handle because we can have somebody like me supervising, somebody that's getting the details, right? What are we doing, right? So how we kind of split it up is my brother's more of the outseeker, the guy that goes and meets the owners, meets the people, gets the job, does the bid, and then me and my dad will come in. I'll organize, make sure everything's good. He'll perform the work with the crew, and pretty much I'm the runner. I'm the guy bringing the machine, bringing it over here, making sure this is correct, making sure these medidas are right. Seeing what type of concrete we're gonna do, how, you know, on a day-to-day basis, like, okay, we're planning, you know, we got to have concrete footings over here. Well, what do we need, right? We need a concrete pump. I need to schedule the concrete pump, schedule the concrete. What type of concrete? What are we pouring, right? It's stuff like that you start getting the hang of it when you really start doing it, and it becomes
natural.
Yeah, it just becomes natural. You start thinking about different things coming up, like, oh, hey, we got to pour. And if you don't get your slot in the... It's
almost like you're working for the future type shit.
Like, you have to, because like the shit that if you're working
today, you planned that shit like 2 weeks ago. Because if you decide what you're gonna do the day of, like they're like, bro, you call the workers, like, dude, you just call me, bro. Like, you know, I got a schedule. You know, I gotta go with this job. Like the inspectors too, right? The inspectors like right now with the holidays, they're like, I'm booked for the rest of the year. And I was like, so what does that mean? He's like, I'll see you next year. I was like.
Right. And then you can't do anything, like you can't pour sidewalks, you can't, you know, they need to see it.
So your job gets put on hold, and it might not seem like a lot, but you lose 2 weeks here, it rains and you lose days there, and then there's other holidays. So they're like, what the fuck?
And then everything comes into that, like, okay, did we get this done? Did we get this passed? Did we get electrical passed? Can we cover this up? So it's different things like that you got to start getting the gist of, right?
Always got to be ahead of it too, because You don't want, I mean, especially if you're the one that's in charge, you don't want somebody to have to come in and do your work. Or like, hey, man, like, they ask you, have you done this? Have you done this? And I'm like, no, I haven't. So why? Because you start painting a bad picture. Like, you're sleeping and shit. And so, we're not perfect. Sometimes, you get behind, but you can quickly catch up. But you just got to be ahead of it, right? You always got to be ahead of the game. And in your position, you might have to be ahead of, your brother and your dad, because it's almost like you're the one that's supposed to know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like, what are we doing? When are we going?
Like, that's your job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. I schedule it out, and I'm like, okay, we're pouring this day. Make sure. And then, my dad and brother are off doing different things. Mm-hmm. So I had to remind them, like, hey, remember? Hey, call the guys.
Right.
Hey, be there at 6:00. Be here at 5:30. Or, different. You kind of get a more responsibility of like, oh, are we pouring at night? Okay, I need to go get light towers. I need to go get this. Like, okay, make sure he's good.
Down to the smallest things. Like, where concrete works sometimes, you got to close up a fucking road.
Yeah.
And so I'm
that's the worst.
Have you pulled the public works permit? I'm like, all right, you're digging, right? Concrete. The biggest thing, have you done a one call?
Yeah.
Right? Because God forbid you hit a fucking gas line, bro, and you didn't do
We've done that.
Like one call is this system that you have to come do, where they come spray the water lines and gas lines, so you don't go, where they're at. So if you have to dig around there, you don't dig so deep. So you get to a point where you dig a good amount and you start shoveling, or let's say you don't know and you start digging, you hit a fucking gas line. One, you can kill a lot of people, and two, like, the government is fucking pissed at you if you hit one. Like, I'm talking about, you call in and because you gotta call it in, and it's like a 911 emergency, because any little spark or something can blow up the fucking neighborhood, like a few houses. For sure,
man. Like, you're seeing ambulances, cops.
They close the street off. Like, man, they're coming in, and first thing they ask, because I've had this shit happen to me before, and I that's why I tell myself that shit's never happening again, man. They show up and they're like, "Where's the one call?" And I'm like, so I call the dude. I say, "Did you do a one call?" He's like, "No." I was like,
never.
And then they're like, "I thought you was gonna do the one call." I was like, "No, bro." So now I make sure that my guys don't know. I'm like, because whoever's performing the work has to do the one call. Yeah. So now I'm like, all right, y'all gonna do the groundwork and ring? I'm gonna have you call one call. And they're like, nah, let me call it, because it's free. It's absolutely free, right? I just call that shit in, and then they can arrest you. I found out that, like, man, they'll fucking arrest you because it's considered like endangerment, and they close the streets off and shit. So, anybody that's becoming a builder, make sure that y'all, if it's one super important lesson, is fucking call one call, because you can get into some deep shit. Like,
for real, yeah.
You just start smelling gas.
Especially you have
shit.
somebody
you see
smoking.
Somebody trying to
you got a smoker in your crew. You got a smoker in your crew.
Right?
Yeah, you're done.
Man, that's just crazy, man. And okay, man. Well, we're getting close to the end of the interview. Something I always ask every guest that's on here is just quickly, what advice would you give the audience? One personal and one financial that you could leave them with today that, you feel has resonated a lot with you, and you hope that they can, take that, if from this whole podcast today, or from your story, that you hope that can help them in their.
Yeah, life. I think the personal would be, like I said, learn to listen and ask questions as much as you can. Be eager to learn, and be willingful to ask, right? Mm-hmm. That's the biggest advice I can give somebody, and be willing to work, right? Nothing comes to you on your plate. You have to go get it, right? You got to make sure, if you need the education, to go get the education and go do what you want to do. If it is working hard in a trade, or getting, a certain license, or doing this, it's being, focused on it. Right. It's, at least for the financial part, it's be smart with your money as well, right? If you want to start your business, start saving up. It takes a little bit at a time. You can $100 in your pocket while you, in the next 4 years, save up $100 every week. Right. It'll get you long.
They'd be surprised how far you can.
And we were talking about equipment. One day you can just buy equipment cash, man.
And you just fucking rent that shit out. And just have passive income.
It's stuff like that I wish when I was younger I would have thought about. Right. But, you don't really think about it until somebody tells you. Or somebody gets in that position like, hey, you should be thinking about that,
Right.
To open different, doors throughout your life whenever you become older.
Yeah, like sacrifice some of the not important shit, right? Like, you don't need the new car when you're fucking 18.
For sure.
You don't need the gold chains and the watches and shit, because let that shit come later. Because if you give yourself those rewards early on, you'll find yourself that's all you have, because that shit don't make money. You know what I'm saying? That shit loses. Sure. You know, that's like it loses, you know, a value. So yeah, no, I appreciate the advice, man, for the audience, and I appreciate you taking the time to come out, and you know, much blessings to you and your family's business, and hopefully we can have you back on. I tell every guest, I was like, hopefully with this channel, I'd like to have you guys back on, you know, every, you know, once a year or once every 2 years, so you know they can see, you know, what's changed from today, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
yeah,
for it to be a time capsule, and you know, again, the podcast is to give, you know, positive advice to the audience who's watching it. You know, remember, this is a video that will be here for life, so one day you have a kid,
yeah,
you know, you can find the video and show them, like, yo, this was me, you know, like, you know, imagine if it was your son, right, or daughter watching this. You know, what would you like for them to learn through these videos? Which is, hopefully, it's positive. It is nothing but positivity. Yeah. You know, positive messages, and you know, I guess from on my end, I want the audience to know that, you know, we're cheering for them, and if they ever need any, you know, any advice, or you know, any, I've heard from a friend of mine that some of his brothers are interested. I'm like, you know, don't feel bad, you know, like don't hesitate, you know, send us a DM, send me a DM, you know, I'd be happy to chat with somebody. For hopefully, sure. If that's something that you're up for, I think it's nice if we can give advice to people that are interested in this field, because, you know,
for sure. And
I wish I would have had that, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, when we were younger,
for sure, those little collections, that, right? You know, like the thing that I got from working these other jobs is I made so many other connections to where, let's say, things don't, you know, the road isn't always smooth out there, right? Sometimes this is our plan. We have a plan, but it doesn't go according to plan, right? So you got to take the alternative. But when you have connections through people you work with or people that you know, it, you know, in those difficult situations, sometimes you need a job, sometimes you need this, you need that, right? And through those different connections, you can find that, right?
So it's that's always important, like having as many doors as open as you can.
Absolutely, never close it.
Don't be scared to go looking for doors too, because, you know, the doors aren't going to show up to you, you know, like, because we don't know that person needs advice, right? And so I guess when we were young, at least on my end, I could say that I just didn't know where to look because I didn't have nobody. So thankfully, everybody who's watching the page, and I tell people, I was like, if you guys have siblings, please show it to them, especially if your parents or you know, people that are in construction, because this is something that, you know, I'm not an envious person. You know, more blessings if we have nothing but Hispanic builders. But I tell, you know, all the younger audience, I'm like, there's a huge demand for Hispanic builders, foremen, project managers, because, you know, estimators, just everything you can imagine, because the language, this is a field that weighs heavy on the languages that you speak. And in this field, it just so happens to be a lot of Hispanic workers. And so, you know, if in doubt that they don't know what they want to do with their life, and, you know, they have somewhat of a construction, you know, familiarity from their parents, siblings, you know, anybody, I'm like, let it be something that you at least, you know, you have somewhat of experts here that can, you know, give you a little bit of knowledge. And then, you know, I know if I ask my boss, you know, if I feel like they're committed, I'm pretty sure that my boss wouldn't mind. Or your father, or your brother. But I know my boss, I know him, he's a great guy. Like, he wouldn't mind, like, yeah, come in, talk to him for a few minutes, right? Yeah. Because let you make those decisions early on before you decide you want to get into this career. And we're not trying to sell you on anything, because, again, we don't gain anything. It's just, I just want to see my people or my community succeed, which is correct. I think the biggest reason for having this podcast.
For sure, yeah. I mean, if anybody has any questions regarding, you know, commercial construction management, and how it is starting off, or, you know, what different responsibilities, or what, you know, what kind of the process is, or, you know, what, maybe you're in it, right? I have a lot of friends that are in it, and I was more in depth, right? I was more into detail, to where they were in the kind of same position, but they had questions they didn't know, and they weren't, you know, that sometimes the company doesn't help. No. So I was helping, you know, different friends that, you know, Miguel or Jose, that were starting out, where I knew it instantly, right? Hey, well, how do I find this? Like, I wasn't even in their job. I was just like, you know what, open up this, and that. Like, it's the same process, just different.
And you would think that, like, oh, because sometimes you make that assumption, like, oh, why don't you know, right? Or we're the same age. But again, it's that, like in Spanish we say que te cuesta, right? Like you know the info. And you don't know how big of an impact you're having to their like they were fucking freaking out about this,
right?
Or they didn't know where to find it. And so thankfully, that day you helped them. Another day they may help you.
For sure.
Today I help you. Tomorrow you help me. And so I think this is what this industry is, and it's really important connections and actually having people, because I think in this field of work, shit gets done quicker and easier and better when you have a good group of people around.
Great, yeah.
If you can't build a home by
greatly
yourself.
Said. If you have a bad group of people around you, that just
shit can go the opposite.
Yeah, man, it can go both ways. But like you said, it's all about positivity. I try to get the most out of it that I can. Mm-hmm. For whatever I worked, right? I always had a great attitude. Everything that I did, I never said, why am I doing this? Or second doubted my task. It was taking out the trash. I was taking out the trash. Mm-hmm. If I was mopping the floor full of water, it was mopping up the floor full of water. I was grateful.
Your turn, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
there's people who are like, why am I pushing water with a college degree? I was like, why are you asking? You get a job, man. Just go ahead and do it. Like, it's the type of people that are like setting people down. But I'm grateful for everything I had at that point. I'm like, I push water. Shit, I've been in the slums. I was.
You have a bigger, I guess, appreciation for, the stuff that maybe somebody else may complain about, because, like today's your day. You know what I'm saying? Today te tocó a ti. Today's your job, and then tomorrow might be them. But that at least when it was your turn, like, you didn't complain about it.
Yeah.
And why? Because I guess that says a lot about you yourself. But it also sends a positive image to everybody around you, because
for sure,
if you see somebody being a dick and stingy, and that's what they think that person is.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like you never get along with it.
People talk about everybody, like whether we want to admit it or not. But you see somebody who is a dick and never helps out, and they be like, nah, bro, don't go to him, or don't help him out. Why? Because he don't help nobody out. So little do they know that you're doing so much self-harm to themselves.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be a team player, and people see that shit. Like, you're gonna get away from somebody who's not a team player, because know that when shit comes to it, they gonna abandon you type shit. So it's like, you don't want to associate yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's making those connections. I mean, one thing that was hard was like you're saying, there's not a lot of Hispanics in that field doing management. Mm-hmm. Like, you're with a bunch of different races, whites, Asians, blacks, that you've never communicated with. And one of the biggest things was a language barrier, because all I knew in construction was Spanish. Wow. Everything that was told to me was in Spanish. Wow. So, that transition into just speaking English was like, what are you talking about?
Even though we speak English and shit.
Yeah, there would be like, pass me the Phillips head. What's a Phillips head?
And it's construction talk, you know what I'm saying? They'll tell you,
sure,
these weight bearings and these LVLs and all this like just complex shit.
Oh, yeah.
Like they'll be like, go get the Simpson ties, or go get the Simpson ties. I don't know what the fuck's the Simpson tie.
Exactly. You don't know.
Then you'd be like, oh,
it in Spanish.
Yeah,
and
like, cool. I was like,
or like lingo in the radio. We had a radio whenever I was working commercial, and like all their lingo, like 10-4.
Right. Yeah.
What's your 6? I'm like, what is this?
Abbreviations and shit. And so it's interesting because, we've spoken English since we were kids. To most extent, I don't know if when you started, but I know for me, since I was like in kindergarten, I was speaking English. But you come to realize how little you know English when you come into some type of science term, right? Like a really like corporate world where it's like, damn, I never use this.
Oh, yeah,
you don't use those words outside of like
for sure
the field. But being in the field so much, it becomes normal, because it's you're using that language every single day, because you have to use it with them, because it's all the white guys and the African American people who speak English and the inspectors. But then you got to learn it in Spanish, because the guy's Hispanic. So you got to figure out how to fuck what he just said, how to translate it to him. Yeah. And he understands it. So you're sort of like this middleman. And
for sure, like, man. Like, you become the middleman real quick, especially if you're doing things right? Like, they come to you. Like, I was over an area of a building, and I would get a radio call in, hey, can you come right here? Like, hey, I need you to tell them this, and that.
Exactly.
And if you don't know how to translate that, like, then it's worthless, right?
So they sort of start depending on you, because they're like,
yeah, for sure.
He knows how to explain it. And so they're like, because they'll sit there and try to explain to them, and he'd be like, hey, bro, like, I really don't understand what that is. I was like, I know a little bit of English, but he's saying some shit. And I was like, can you tell me what it is? And I'm like, you talk to me, and I'll see the inspector's like,
yeah.
Thank you, man. Like I was like, I've been struggling over here for like 10 minutes trying to get it. I was like, bro, just give me a call, bro. I was like, anytime, just man. Put me on speaker.
And so the funny part was, like, when I got promoted into the office, they missed me so much, man. Like, I was getting phone calls left and right. Like, hey, can you go? Like, I'm in the office now, buddy. I can't go.
Yeah, I can't.
You know, they depended on me to a certain extent, but
they almost wish like you hadn't left, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah, for
like,
sure. Yeah, like the superintendent, like, why is he leaving?
Yeah.
Like, he's going to the office? What's that? But, you know, that's where you want to be, because then you become kind of irreplaceable to them, right? Like, that's who they want in the company, somebody that can figure out problems and solve them, right then and there. And that's kind of the person I made myself, was
and that's
somebody who
could important things that makes you great in this business. Being the person that can solve problems. Yeah. It's what makes you irreplaceable in this field. If you're somebody who only creates problems or has to go look for somebody else to solve the problems, is what you'll find yourself being, like, sort of in the shadow of somebody, or you'll never see yourself increasing, because in this field, it's it's probably the most important thing, is know how to be in a stressful situation when everyone's stressing out and they're looking at you for the solution. And I guess any problem I see, I'm like, they're not even stressed to the max, because they know I'm already thinking of 3 or 4 solutions. And so our job is to look at it from an angle of what's the cheapest solution, what's the most effective solution, what's the right solution, and what's the fastest solution. And sometimes you have to be able to say, okay, we can't do this one, but we can do these 2. And then I asked the guy, I'm like, can you make that happen? And so why? Because you may not know how to fix it, but they need direction of how to fix it.
Correct.
And they're like, cool, yeah, I didn't see it. Yeah, you're right, I could do this and this.
Yeah.
I was like, to make it happen, bro. I was like, why? Because we gotta.
Yeah, someday they taught me. Yeah, someday they taught me is, like, we're never gonna wait for the architect to give us direction. We're gonna give the direction to the architect. So that was something that a lot of, I guess, commercial general contractors do, is to just ask the question, right? Like a RFI, which is just a reference for information, right? For the people that don't know, but it's pretty much a question that you have in the drawings. Let's say something doesn't make sense. What they say is, come up with a solution and ask the architect if it's okay. Like, you've already solved it.
Right.
Hey, this is what we're doing.
And you got to second guess it, and they'll be like, yeah, cool, it works.
Cool, it works.
And then all they got to do is just go and put the edits that you're doing, because you got to add it on the plans.
Yeah,
you got to
correct.
put it on the notes. And
it just.
Why? Because architects don't know real world problems.
No.
Because sometimes you find out that the shit that they draw
man.
don't work. So I'll call them up and like, hey, bro, what the fuck you mean this and this or this detail? That shit don't work.
Yeah, this shit don't work. But
I'm like, bro, we're this off. We're not this off. We're this off, my guy. I was like, come down here. And he'll be like, oh, man, you're right.
Yeah,
I was like, what the fuck do we do there?
What?
I was like, so we have 2 options. You're not getting that. So I was like, that's not going to be the finish. We either got to do this or this. And they'll look at, all right, go with this one.
Yeah, and that's it, right? Like, but you gotta be.
What are you doing?
You gotta be knowledgeable enough to where you can solve those problems, right? And that's the position you want to be. That's where you have to focus yourself in, is to solve those problems, to be able to think like an architect, even though you're not one. You've thought about it. You're saying, okay, this is my problem, and here's my solution.
Right.
Please accept it, and if it's acceptable, they'll accept it. And you've already.
And I bet you it feels good, because it feels good to me when you fix somebody else's problem, because you're like, damn, like, I know more than fucking architects sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Or like, because you're always gonna have the dudes that, because you look at them as a god, like they're prince, right? Because that's your you could say your skeleton, right? That's what your everything else clings onto, and they run into problems and they're like, shit. And I was like, yeah, dude, it's easy to draw and shit, but I was like, you ain't never been out here. I was like, I'm telling you, shit don't work. I was like, I'm telling you, that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
And sometimes you warn them early on, and they're like, nah, just do it. And then it comes in. I was like, so now we're gonna do it. Why? Because sometimes it costs money. So I'm like, so now who's gonna pay for it? I was like, because this shit don't work. I was like, are you gonna like the right? They don't pay for it, right? So they're like, and I told my boss, I was like, sometimes it happens. I was like, I guess we're not using that architect again.
Yeah.
I was like, sometimes a super detailed plan, I was like, think about it twice before you get another plan from this person, bro. I was like, sometimes I've literally had to build a house. We throw away the fucking plans. We're like, we told the framers, I was like, dude, just fucking make it work. I was like, I don't know, something's fucked here. And we tell them, can you fix it? And they're like, yeah. I was like, just let me know what you've changed, so I'm aware of, anything, like, because the framing is the structure of it, right? Yeah. So I was like, anything you have to fucking change, direction, beams or any of that shit, let me know, because we need to make sure we don't go, our plumbing can work, our HVAC. Yeah. Electrical, you can snake that shit, but HVAC and electrical, don't.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was like, if you move the beam and now you can't cut a beam, you got to pass that pipe through that beam. I was like, you can't cut the beam, bro. So I was like, either raise the beam or put a regular joist or some shit. I was like, double it, triple it. I was like, I don't know what you're doing, bro, but I was like, I can't cut a fucking beam or make the clearance high. Like, I have come into a situation where the staircase hits, and I was like, this shit don't work. So I was like, I was like, rip it up and make it at an angle. And I was like, it's going to look a little bad. But I was like, the architect, I was like, bro, you can't. You have to have 7-foot clearance, right? We're just a whole bunch of coach.
Yeah,
but it's knowing to be a problem solver, which, Gio thankfully is. And, he's doing really well with where he's at today. And, like I said, man, much blessings to, you're 2 years younger than me. I'd really like to see where you're at in another 2 years. And, hopefully you guys have multiplied your blessings. And you guys just continue to grind and, be as big as you guys can and dream of, which For is sure.
Sky's the limit.
The sky's the limit, man. So I really appreciate your time, today on the podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we appreciate all the support that you guys have been giving us. We'll make sure that, I always tag my guests. And again, if you guys ever feel that y'all need some advice or something like that, please don't hesitate to ask. And, that's where we're going to be ending today's podcast. And thank you guys. It's right before Christmas, so happy Christmas to everybody.
Happy Christmas to everybody.
Hopefully, y'all get good presents. Y'all all more good people, right? And if y'all don't give and y'all don't get gifts and y'all just give, hopefully you guys, your people are happy with the gifts you give. And so happy holidays, guys. Try to rest up a little bit. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week, which is the week right before New Year's. And after that, we'll see you guys at the 2024. But appreciate you taking the time today.
Yes, sir. And just for the last of it, if anybody does have questions, like you said, you'll tag me. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to answer anything,
Appreciate that, man.
A little startup, like you said, if you have young audiences that don't really know how to make a resume or, what it's like, the different skills, what they should do. Maybe they're having difficulty at work or knowing something, right. There's two experts right here that could easily solve some problems or answer some questions.
So hopefully we can point you guys in the right direction, or if not, figure it out. I was like, because if we don't know, then we got to figure it out. All right, otherwise we wouldn't be good at what we do. So
for sure.
All right, guys. Well, you have a good night.